Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Tarun's Thoughts. My name's Tarun Shetty. This is my bedroom. Hope everyone's having a good day. I just got back from Trader Joe's. So, whenever I come back alive, or not coughing, I think that's a victory, right? But I've been getting a lot of requests from comedians, stand-ups to do their Zoom shows. I just say no. I mean, if you're a comedian watching this, you do it. No judgment, but it's not for me. And I was thinking, I was like, dude, I've been doing comedy since I think 98, my freshman year of college, and I was like, man, I wish there's things somebody told. I never had a comedy mentor growing up. I never had that. I wish I did, but I never did. And I was like, man, I wish there were a few things somebody told me when I was starting off. So I thought I would just walk through 5 bullet points. I mean, I just made these up like 2 minutes before this, to be honest with you, but they jumped out at me right off the bat. So I thought I'd share it in case anybody's interested. Anyways, number one, I think it's pretty obvious, but it's easy to misunderstand. You got to stay true to yourself, to your comedy, because what's going to happen when you start off doing comedy, you're going to get a lot of advice from older comedians on what you should do with your act and how you should change. And you should change, I mean, but it just should happen organically as you do comedy. Like, that's their natural progression. Like, when I see like young comedians and they suck, I don't judge them because I'm like, oh, this is where they should be. And then like a year later, like they figured out how to get laughs on stage. And then 5 years later, like they're actually doing really well on stage. Like, that's the natural progression of how you learn. But it should be an organic change. And a lot of older comedians are going to tell you, you know, how you should change your act, which is complete BS, because I think they should be, you know, jailed immediately. Like, here's 2 examples. Remember, I was working the door at the Boston Comedy Club in New York City, not in Boston, in Greenwich Village. And I remember the host just pulling me aside and just telling me, oh, you got to change this about your act. And I was a young kid. I was in New York City, so I was like, oh, this guy obviously knows. And I remember just being so confused and just lost on stage. Like, I probably would have changed eventually in New York, but the guy was like, if you want to play this club, you got to change this about your act. And I was so just depressed that year because I didn't know what I was doing anymore on stage, trying to fit into this. I should have learned my lesson there. And when I got to Hollywood, whenever I'd moved to do new cities, I got to Hollywood, I had this manager who had some pretty named clients, and I did his showcase. By the way, I talk about this story in my book, Laughing in Hell. It's a novella. It's available on Amazon. But I had this showcase at the Laugh Factory, and like 2 days before, he was like, you have to change the wording of your jokes. I was like, what? I've been doing these jokes for years. And so you have to do it if you want to do the showcase. So obviously I did it, and you know, there were huge casting directors there, agents, you name it, they were there. I just ate my dick at the showcase. Like, it was. I think I got lit early, and my manager was mad, but he didn't care because he had like 12 other clients. But you know, that was my first impression in Hollywood. Like, I was like, some of those guys saw me kill in New York, and then they saw me again in LA, and they're like, oh, this guy really took a dive. And I really think that showcase held me back for a few years because like I could not even get seen by people. So you got to stay true to your voice and your comedy. I think that's predominant. That's number 1 in this list for sure. 2, there are no lifeboats coming. And what I mean by that is this is all my experiences, by the way. Like, when I started doing comedy, I thought like if you just showed up every night and like put in the work, like somebody's gonna come just pull you out of your misery and just, you know, elevate you to another level. And that's what I did in New York. New York for 7 years, I just did comedy every night, like every spot, and anywhere, any place, anytime, I would just do it. And then I realized, dude, nobody's coming to see me. Like, nobody's coming to like to cast me. And I wanted to like, you know, act in like TV and movies and stuff. And I mean, I had an agent, but I wasn't even doing anything. And I was like, that's why when I got to LA, I really shifted how I saw comedy. I started making, you know, I made Desi OC, the web series. I started like hosting and making segments. I started learning filmmaking, guerrilla filmmaking. because I realized there are no lifeboats coming, even to this day. Like I see, like a lot of my older comedian friends, and they can't even get these showcases anymore with these talent bookers. It makes sense because they don't give a shit. They don't care about you. They don't. There are no lifeboats coming. You have to always, you've got to make and generate your own spark and heat. And even when you do have heat, you know, I worked on the agent side of the business. They only care when you're hot. When you're not hot, nobody gives a shit about you. So there are no lifeboats coming. This is not, you're not becoming a doctor or a lawyer. There's no thing we put in X amount of years, you go to the next level. You're on your own completely. It's kind of weird because like comedy, you're always around people, but really you're just around yourself. Which brings me to number 3, like everyone has a different journey. Like, I mean, I'm not just talking about how you see some people rise really quickly, some people, you know, never get good at all. But I'll see comedians who just, they'll start as stand-ups and then they'll become like TV writers, or they'll become comedy directors, or they'll just become actors and never do stand-up comedy again. And there's this thing in stand-up where you see your friends doing things and you're like, oh, I've got to, you know, emulate them. Like the whole podcasting thing, everyone had a podcast after Mark Maron because of that. Oh, this is what, you know, my friends are doing. I got to do what they're doing. And like everyone has a different journey. In fact, my advice from working in the management side of the business is figure out how you're authentic and do that. Double down on that. Don't try to be somebody else because there's already a version of that and you're not going to be as good. Seems pretty obvious, but it's easy to lose sight of that because comedy, it's such a desperate business sometimes, and you're like, man, let me just work. I want to work and be somebody. So you forget about the bare essentials, like who you are, or why you got in this business. You know, like people came here to be like actors, and they're like, you know, fuck it, I'll be a podcaster. It's like, what? You didn't want to be a podcaster. Why are you doing this? I mean, why am I doing this? I'm talking on a phone right now, but I actually do like talk. I mean, I feel like I'm hosting like I used to do back in the day. All right, where are we? Number 3, number 4. I forget. 4. Okay, 4. It's going to be hard, which I know another one bullet point that seems like an obvious thing, but when I say hard, it's going to be like you never expected it. I knew it was going to be hard, which is why I started really young, but I had no idea like how messed up I would be 10 years into it, because comedy, there's so many sacrifices that you make. You know, I've been in therapy twice. I've had 2 different therapists. You know, but I was like a normal like Indian kid, you know, who just had his shit together, and then like 10 years into the business, I was like a complete mess, like, you know, just depressed. I had like a weird Adderall thing going. Like it was just like this mess of things going, you know, which I never expected out of me, because comedy will just, I can't even articulate it, honestly. Here's what, I actually journaled about this once. I remember I was talking to my mom, and she was like, yeah, I was looking back at all my memories of like you guys going to school and like building a house and stuff. My memories of comedy in my 20s is just hanging out at these comedy clubs, waiting to go up, you know, bombing consistently, you know, watching my friends, you know, just blow up, and you're just like, what the hell? I'm doing everything. I'm working my ass off. Having no money, you know, just this thing. I think me being Indian also just makes it a lot worse, because I think Indians have like a higher standard for themselves. Not to be a dick or anything, but that's what really compounded my anxiety and my sadness. But it's going to be hard. And if you're not willing to go through that, then you're wasting your time, because like when I see my friends who have made it in comedy, I mean, they're almost like kind of deranged, some of them. You know, they've got this weird filter, because they've gone through so much. And I know they've gone through much. Even my friends who haven't made it, like you can tell they've gone through a lot of things and made a lot of sacrifices. You know, a friend of mine, Dan Natterman in New York, he once told me, he goes, Tarun, he goes, the hardest thing about comedy when you're educated especially is, you know, you could have gone to law school or, you know, some other graduate degree, or, you know, and flourish, but like, he's like, the other comedians would have become dock workers, but he's like, when you do comedy, it's like you're giving up a lot to pursue this dream, and there's no guarantees. So it's going to be hard. And I mean, again, I knew it was gonna be hard, but I had no idea like how hard it was gonna be. Again, my novella, check it out. It's all detailed there. And lastly, number 5 is have fun. You got to enjoy something out of it, because like I said before, a lot of your time doing comedy, especially starting out, is struggling. Like, comedy is great when it's going well. In fact, I see my friends who are touring comedians, and they were touring, and they were kind of famous. So, they're flying, first class, making like 10,000 a show, whatever, and like just hooking up with girls. Not that this is, what happiness is, but they seem like they're thoroughly enjoying the process of comedy. But like when you're starting off, it's a really difficult thing, as I said before, and you have to figure out a way to enjoy, the moments of it. Whether you're hanging out with your friends before the show, you enjoy the craft of it, you enjoy writing comedy, you enjoy, trying on different forms, and whether you're doing a prop comedy or observational, it's like figuring out who you are. You have to enjoy that journey too. Because look, days turn into months, months turn into years, and next thing you know, you've been on the scene for 20 years. So you want to look back with some fondness and just enjoy the process of it all. So with that said, I mean, anything else really? I guess don't hook up with the waitstaff. That's number 6. But hope everyone's having a great quarantine week. See you guys soon. Take care.